The massive research ship hovered above Earth's surface, its hull gleaming under the morning sun. Dr. Robert Nash stared through the observation window, his hands gripping the railing as he watched the scanning equipment descend toward the planet's surface. After 20 years of studying ancient alien artifacts, he might finally uncover humanity's biggest mystery. Dr. Nash, the deep scan readings are ready. Lisa Bennett called from her workstation. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display, bringing up streams of data. As Earth's leading quantum physicist, she had designed the new scanning technology they were using today. Robert walked over to her station, his heart beating faster. "Show me what you found." The 3D display lit up, showing Earth's internal structure. But something was different. Where there should have been just layers of rock and metal, there were perfectly geometric patterns running through the core. "This can't be right," Robert whispered, leaning closer. "These patterns, they're artificial." Lisa nodded, her face pale. "And they're old, really old. The dating system shows they're at least 100,000 years older than human civilization." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "Dr. Nash, this is Captain Alan Baker. We're getting some strange energy readings from your scan. Is everything okay down there?" "Captain, you need to see this," Robert replied. "We found something impossible." Within minutes, the ship's command center was filled with the top researchers from the Galactic Council. Alien scientists stood shoulder to shoulder with humans, all staring at the scanning data. The patterns weren't just random structures. They formed a massive interconnected network around Earth's core. Dr. 6427, a tall, blue-skinned alien scientist, pointed at the display. "These energy signatures match ancient warnings we found in ruins across the galaxy, but we never knew what they meant until now." Lisa zoomed in on one of the geometric patterns. "It's some kind of containment system, but the technology, it's beyond anything we have today. Even the most advanced alien civilizations can't build something like this." Robert felt a chill run down his spine. "The question is, what is it containing?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. As they watched, one of the patterns pulsed with a soft blue light. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as energy readings spiked off the charts. "Everyone stay calm," Captain Baker ordered. "Lisa, what are we looking at?" Lisa's fingers flew across her controls. "The pattern isn't just a barrier, it's a seal. And whatever's inside, it's responding to our scans." The ship's alien advisor, a small gray-skinned being named Rek, stepped forward. His large eyes were wide with fear. "In our oldest records, there are stories of a species that could break worlds. They weren't stories about defeating the species. They were warnings about containing them." Robert looked at Earth through the window, seeing his home planet in a new light. "Are you saying humans were that species?" "Think about it," Lisa said, pulling up more data. "Every time humanity has been tested, we've shown abilities that surprise the galaxy. Our adaptability, our resilience, our capacity to manipulate our environment. What if those are just echoes of what we once were?" The blue pulse grew stronger. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, more patterns began to light up, creating a web of glowing lines visible even from space. Captain Baker grabbed the ship's comm system. "This is an emergency broadcast to the Galactic Council. We need immediate containment support at Earth. Priority level, Alpha." But Lisa was shaking her head. "Captain, these seals, they weren't built by aliens to contain humans. The technology has human fingerprints all over it. We did this to ourselves." The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Robert sank into a chair, his mind racing. Why? Why would we seal away our own power? Before anyone could answer, the ship's sensors detected multiple incoming vessels. The Galactic Council had responded to the emergency call, sending their most powerful ships to Earth. A new voice came over the comm system. The calm, authoritative tone of the Council's High Commander. "Dr. Nash, Dr. Bennett, you are to cease all scanning immediately. The Council is invoking Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha. Earth is now under quarantine until we can understand what we're dealing with. As the research team began shutting down their equipment, Lisa pulled Robert aside. "There's something else," she whispered. "The seals. They're degrading. Whatever our ancestors locked away, it's starting to wake up." Robert looked at the data one last time before the screens went dark. The patterns weren't just containing something. They were holding back a force that could reshape reality itself. And now, after thousands of years, those chains were starting to break. As the Council ships moved into position around Earth, Robert couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just making a discovery. They were witnessing the beginning of something much bigger. Humanity's true nature was about to be unleashed, and the galaxy wasn't ready for what would come next. In his quarters that night, Robert reviewed his personal notes. The seals had shown signs of recent activity, microfractures that shouldn't exist in such advanced technology. Something was changing, evolving deep within Earth's core. The question wasn't just why their ancestors had sealed away these powers. It was whether those powers had stayed the same during their long imprisonment. Lisa's final scans, hidden away on her private data pad, showed energy patterns that matched no known physics model. The forces contained within Earth didn't just break the rules of reality. They rewrote them entirely. As Robert stared out his window at the quarantine fleet surrounding Earth, he realized that humanity's greatest discovery might also be its most dangerous moment. The galaxy had just learned why Earth's world-breaking forces were sealed away. Soon, they would all learn what happens when those seals finally break. The first part of that answer was already beginning, hidden in the subtle tremors that no one else had noticed yet. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in the spaces between the ancient seals, something was stirring. Humanity's sealed legacy was awakening, and this time, there would be no holding it back. The true question wasn't what would happen when the seals broke. It was whether humanity was ready to reclaim its forgotten power, and whether the galaxy would survive the experience. Amanda Cole didn't mean to change the world. As a junior researcher in the Earth Core Studies facility, she was just doing her job, analyzing the strange energy patterns that Dr. Nash's team had discovered 3 weeks ago. But sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest actions. She sat in the underground lab, surrounded by humming machines. The clock showed 3 a.m., but she couldn't sleep. The energy readings from the core had been getting stronger every day. "Just one more scan," she muttered, adjusting the settings on her equipment. The new scanning beam was her own design, meant to look deeper into the geometric patterns without disturbing them. The machine powered up with a soft whine. On her screen, the familiar shapes of the ancient seals appeared, glowing with their strange blue light. But something was different this time. As she watched, one of the patterns began to pulse in rhythm with her scan. "That's not supposed to happen," Amanda said, reaching for the shutdown button. But before she could press it, the pattern flared blindingly bright. The ground beneath the facility trembled. Warning alarms blared through the complex. Kevin Peters, the Galactic Council's science director, burst into the lab. His gray suit was wrinkled from sleeping in his office. "What happened?" he demanded, rushing to Amanda's station. "The energy readings are off the charts." Amanda's hands shook as she pulled up the data. "I don't know. The scan was normal, but then the seal. It responded somehow." Kevin's face went pale as he looked at the readings. "This matches the patterns. The ancient warnings about the world breakers. This is exactly how they described it starting." The building shook again, harder this time. Above them, lights flickered. On Amanda's screen, more of the geometric patterns were lighting up, creating a cascade effect through the ancient network. "We need to evacuate," Kevin said, reaching for the emergency comm. But Amanda grabbed his arm. "Look," she pointed at her screen. The patterns weren't just glowing, they were changing. The perfect geometric shapes were shifting, evolving into new forms. Before Kevin could respond, gravity in the lab suddenly reversed. Everything not bolted down flew toward the ceiling, then crashed back to the floor as gravity returned to normal. Outside the lab windows, they could see the same thing happening all over the facility. "It's not just here," Amanda said, pulling up global sensors. "These effects, they're happening worldwide." Reports started flooding in from around the planet. In New York, time moved 10 times slower for 3 minutes. In Beijing, a whole block of buildings turned into pure energy, then back into matter. In Rio de Janeiro, people started floating off the ground as gravity took a lunch break. The Galactic Council's quarantine fleet watched in horror as Earth itself seemed to pulse with strange energies. Their sensors couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. Fundamental forces of the universe were being bent and twisted like clay. Back in the lab, Kevin was frantically comparing the events to ancient records. "The patterns match perfectly," he said, his voice tight with worry. "This is how it started last time, before the seals were put in place." Amanda studied the changing patterns on her screen. "But look at this. The energy isn't just breaking free. It's organizing itself, like it learned something during all those years of containment." More strange events continued around the globe. In London, a street vendor watched his hot dogs evolve through 1,000 years in seconds. In Sydney, a group of teenagers briefly gained the ability to see through time. In Cairo, a cat walked through solid walls, looking very pleased with itself. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Alien representatives from 100 worlds argued about what to do. Some wanted to destroy Earth before its powers fully awakened. Others wanted to try to help contain it again. A few brave souls suggested waiting to see what would happen. Meanwhile, in the lab, Amanda made another discovery. These patterns, they're not just seals. They're more like training wheels. Kevin looked up from his ancient texts. "What do you mean?" "Look at the structure," she said, pointing to the shifting geometric shapes. "They're not trying to contain the power anymore. They're trying to guide it, like they were designed to slowly release it once humanity was ready." Another tremor shook the building, but this one felt different, more controlled. Through the lab windows, they watched as streams of ethereal energy rose from the ground, dancing like auroras in the early morning sky. "The question is," Kevin said softly, "are we ready now?" Above them, the Galactic Council ships maintained their quarantine, but their sensors were picking up something new. The chaotic energy bursts were becoming more ordered. Earth wasn't just leaking power, it was waking up. In orbit, Dr. Nash and Lisa Bennett watched the events unfold from their research vessel. "It's beautiful," Lisa whispered, watching the energy streams paint the sky. "And terrifying," Robert added. "We're watching humanity's training wheels come off. Nobody knows what we'll be capable of when this is done." Back in the lab, Amanda's screens showed the pattern changes accelerating. The perfect geometric shapes had evolved into complex, organic forms that pulsed with life. And in those patterns, she began to see something more. Instructions. "They left us a message," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "Our ancestors. They didn't just seal away the power. They left us a manual for when we were ready to use it again." Kevin leaned in, his eyes wide. "Can you decode it?" Amanda nodded slowly. "I think so. But there's something else. These powers, they're not just about breaking worlds. They're about making them too. We weren't sealed away because we were destructive. We were sealed away because we weren't ready for the responsibility." As if in response to her words, the energy streams in the sky began to form patterns of their own, mirroring the ancient seals but with new complexity. Earth was changing, and humanity was changing with it. In hospitals around the world, doctors reported patients healing themselves with the thought. In schools, children began to understand quantum physics instinctively. In laboratories, scientists watched as the impossible became merely improbable, then became everyday reality. The power wasn't breaking free, it was coming home. And humanity was finally growing up enough to handle it. Amanda looked at her screens one last time, watching as the last of the rigid geometric patterns dissolved into flowing, organic forms. The training wheels weren't coming off, she realized. They were becoming part of something new, something that combined the wisdom of their ancestors with the potential of their descendants. The galaxy was about to discover why Earth's world-breaking forces were sealed away, not because they were too dangerous to exist, but because they needed time to evolve. Time for humanity to grow into its heritage. Time for the power to become not just a force for breaking worlds, but for making them whole. As the sun rose over the facility, painting the energy streams gold, Amanda smiled. The awakening wasn't an ending, it was just the beginning. Dr. John Martinez held the glowing data crystal in his hand, hardly daring to breathe. After 3 days of non-stop work, his team had finally managed to decode the first of the ancient storage devices found buried near one of the seal points. Next to him, Carol White adjusted the crystal reader's settings with steady hands. "Are you ready?" she asked, looking up from the controls. The lab around them was silent, every researcher holding their breath. John nodded. "Play it." The crystal lit up, and a hologram filled the room. The image showed Earth, but not as they knew it. Continents were in different positions, and strange cities floated in the sky. The recording was over 100,000 years old. A voice spoke, the ancient language automatically translated by their computers. "To our children's children, we leave this record of why we chose to seal away our power and what you must know before it returns." The hologram shifted, showing humans doing impossible things. They reached out with their minds and moved mountains. They folded space like paper. They stepped through time as easily as walking through a door. "Our species was born with the ability to control the basic forces of reality." The voice continued. "We could reshape matter, control energy, and bend the laws of physics. We were the world breakers, and the galaxy trembled at our power." Carol pulled up readings on her tablet. The energy signatures match exactly what we're seeing now around Earth. This isn't just a history lesson. It's an instruction manual. The hologram showed scenes of ancient humans building wonders that defied understanding. Cities that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Ships that could travel between galaxies in moments. Machines that could create or destroy stars. "But power without wisdom is like a fire without control," the ancient voice said. "We could break worlds, yes, but we had not learned how to heal them. We could reshape reality, but we did not understand the responsibility that came with such power." The image changed to show a terrible disaster. A group of young world breakers, showing off their powers, accidentally tore a hole in space-time. The damage spread like cracks in glass, threatening to shatter several galaxies. "It took all of our combined power to fix what a moment of carelessness had nearly destroyed," the voice explained. "And in that moment, we understood. Our children would inherit these powers, but they needed time to grow into them safely." John paused the recording. "This explains so much. Why humans adapt so quickly to any situation. Why we can survive conditions that would kill other species. These abilities never left us. They were just locked away until we were ready." Carol nodded, pointing to new data streaming across her screen. "And look at these readings. The seals aren't breaking. They're transforming. Converting from pure containment to controlled release." They started the recording again. The hologram showed the construction of the Great Seals, powered by the combined will of millions of world breakers. "We chose to seal away our full power," the voice said, "but we left ourselves enough to grow, to learn, to evolve." The seals were designed to weaken gradually, allowing each generation to grow slightly stronger, slightly wiser. In the present, alarms started blaring. Carol rushed to check the readings. "The energy patterns are shifting again. It's like the recording triggered something in the seal network." Outside the lab windows, they could see new auroras dancing in the sky, more complex and beautiful than before. Reports came in from around the world of people discovering strange new abilities. A farmer in Kansas could suddenly understand the language of plants. A teacher in Egypt found she could see the flow of time. A chef in Japan discovered he could rearrange matter at the atomic level to create perfect dishes. But these powers are different from what the ancients had, John said, studying the reports. More controlled, more integrated. The hologram shifted one final time, showing a vision of the future. It showed humans and aliens working together, using these powers not to break worlds, but to heal them, to build them, to make the galaxy better. The seals will fully dissolve when humanity is ready, the ancient voice said. Not when you are as powerful as we were, but when you are wiser than we ever managed to be. Carol's computer chimed with an urgent message. The Galactic Council was detecting massive energy shifts throughout Earth's seal network. But unlike the chaos of the initial awakening, these changes were harmonious, structured. Look at this pattern, she said, pulling up the data. The seals aren't just releasing the power. They're teaching us how to use it. Each release comes with, it's like an encoded lesson. John grabbed his comm unit. We need to get this information to Dr. Nash and the Council immediately. They need to understand. This isn't a catastrophe we need to contain. It's an evolution we need to guide. As they worked to send their findings, more changes swept across Earth. But now, with understanding spreading, people began to adapt more quickly. The chaos of the initial awakening settled into something more controlled, more purposeful. In hospitals, doctors learned to see illness as disruptions in life energy and began healing with a touch. Engineers found they could communicate directly with machines, understanding technology on an intuitive level. Scientists discovered they could perceive quantum states with their bare eyes. The ancient ones didn't just seal away raw power, John said, watching the data flow across his screens. They sealed away techniques, knowledge, understanding. And now we're getting it all back, but in a way we can handle. Carol nodded, her fingers flying over her keyboard as she documented everything. It's like they created the ultimate teaching program. Each new ability comes with an instinctive understanding of its responsibilities and limitations. The hologram flickered one last time, showing a final message. To our descendants, your inheritance is not just power, it is the wisdom to use it well. The seals were never meant to be permanent. They were meant to be teachers. As the crystal's light faded, John and Carol looked at each other, understanding dawning in their eyes. The truth about humanity's sealed powers wasn't just about what had been locked away. It was about why. And more importantly, it was about what humanity would become when those powers finally returned in full. Outside, the auroras grew brighter, painting the sky with possibilities. Earth wasn't just awakening to its old powers. It was awakening to a new purpose. The galaxy had feared the return of the world breakers, but what they were getting instead was something far more interesting: world makers. The truth had emerged, and with it, the future began to change. Ambassador Susan Reynolds stood before the Galactic Council, her back straight and her voice steady. Around her, hundreds of alien representatives filled the massive chamber on their emergency ship, all eyes fixed on the holographic display of Earth floating in the center. We cannot evacuate Earth, she said firmly. Commander Frank Morris has provided clear evidence that moving our population would destabilize the SEAL network completely. The council chamber erupted in shouts and arguments. A tall, insect-like alien stepped forward, its antennae twitching with concern. The humans are too dangerous to be left unchecked. We must act now. Susan watched as more ripples of strange energy flowed across Earth's surface. The beautiful auroras had grown stronger, now visible even from the council's ship in high orbit. Look at the data, she said, pulling up the latest readings. These energy patterns aren't random anymore. They're organized, purposeful. We're learning to control it. Commander Frank Morris's voice came through the chamber speakers. He was coordinating Earth's defense fleet, keeping watch for any ships that might try to interfere with the awakening process. We've got movement in Sector 7, he reported. 3 ships from the Proxima Coalition trying to slip past our defense screen. They're carrying quantum scanners. Looks like they're trying to steal our technology. Susan wasn't surprised. Since the discovery of the seals, various alien factions had been attempting to either steal or destroy Earth's awakening powers. Some wanted the power for themselves. Others wanted to eliminate what they saw as a threat. "Commander Morris," she said, "show them what Earth's defense force can do now." On the main display, they watched as Earth's ships moved with impossible speed and precision. The human pilots, enhanced by their awakening abilities, didn't just intercept the intruders. They disabled their ships without firing a single shot. The human crews had simply reached out with their minds and turned off the enemy vessel's power systems. "This is what we're afraid of," another council member shouted. "Such power cannot be allowed to exist." But before anyone could respond, all the screens in the chamber lit up with urgent warnings. Something big was happening on Earth. Dr. Nash's face appeared on the main display, his expression worried. "Ambassador, we have a problem. The SEAL network, it's reaching a critical point. We need the Council's help, not their fear." Susan turned to the Council members, her voice urgent. "What you're about to see will either convince you to help us or confirm your worst fears. But before you decide, remember what we learned from the ancient records. These powers were sealed away not because they were evil, but because they needed time to mature." The hologram of Earth changed, showing the SEAL network in its entirety. The geometric patterns had evolved into complex, organic shapes that pulsed with living energy. But now those patterns were starting to shimmer and fade. "The SEALs aren't just weakening," Dr. Nash explained. "They're approaching a moment of transformation. If we handle it wrong, we could lose control of the release process entirely." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. An uncontrolled release of Earth's sealed powers could affect the entire galaxy. Commander Morris's voice came through again, tense but controlled. "We've got more ships incoming. The Centauri Imperium, the Orion Collective. Everyone wants a piece of this. Some are offering help, others are making threats." Susan looked at the council leaders, her eyes moving from one alien face to another. "We don't need your permission to reclaim our heritage, but we're asking for your help to do it safely, to do it right." On the displays, they could see the effects spreading. Earth's atmosphere rippled with waves of probability. Time itself seemed to flex and bend around the planet. The power of the world breakers was stirring, but it wasn't the raw, destructive force the galaxy feared. It was something new. "Look at how our people are handling it," Susan said, bringing up footage from Earth's cities. People weren't panicking. They weren't using their new abilities for destruction. Instead, they were helping each other adapt, learning together, growing together. A young girl in Tokyo was teaching her friends how to see the flows of probability. A farmer in Brazil was using his new connection to nature to heal damaged ecosystems. Scientists worldwide were sharing their enhanced insights, solving problems that had plagued humanity for centuries. But not everything was going smoothly. The SEAL network's transformation was causing increasingly strange effects. In some places, reality itself seemed to hiccup. Buildings would briefly turn transparent. Streets would rearrange themselves. The laws of physics took occasional coffee breaks. "We need to stabilize the transformation," Dr. Nash said. "The SEALs were designed to be training wheels, but taking them off too quickly could be catastrophic. We need the Council's combined scientific knowledge to help us manage the process." Commander Morris's voice cut in again, more urgent this time. "Ambassador, we've got a situation. The Proxima Coalition is threatening to use their dimensional collapse weapons. They say if we don't shut down the awakening, they'll try to force it." Susan faced the Council one last time. "You have a choice to make. Help us control this transformation, guide it safely to completion, or try to stop it and risk something far worse. The power of the world breakers is returning whether you help us or not. The only question is whether it returns in chaos or in harmony." The chamber erupted in debate again, but this time it was different. More voices were calling for cooperation than confrontation. The evidence was becoming too clear to ignore. Humanity wasn't becoming a threat to the galaxy. They were becoming its next great hope. As the Council argued, Earth continued its transformation. The SEAL network pulsed with increasing power, each wave bringing new changes, new abilities, new understanding. The true crisis wasn't the return of humanity's power. It was whether the galaxy would help guide that return or try to fight it. Commander Morris's fleet held position, ready to defend Earth if necessary. Dr. Nash and his team worked frantically to stabilize the SEAL network, and Susan Reynolds stood before the Galactic Council, waiting for their decision, knowing that the next few moments would shape not just humanity's future, but the future of the entire galaxy. The power of the World Breakers was returning, but this time it would be different. This time, humanity had wisdom to match its strength. All they needed now was the chance to prove it. Mary Douglas stood in her laboratory at the Global Quantum Research Center, watching streams of data flow across her screens. At 28, she was the youngest quantum mechanics expert on Earth, and right now, that expertise was desperately needed. The SEAL network is changing faster than we expected, she said into her communicator. But it's not breaking down, it's evolving. Around her, reality rippled like water. Objects in the lab would occasionally float, affected by her unconscious thoughts. Like many humans now, Mary was developing abilities she barely understood. Dr. Nash's hologram appeared beside her desk. What do you mean by evolving, Mary? We need to understand this quickly. The Council is still debating whether to help us or stop us. Mary pulled up a complex 3D model of Earth's energy patterns. Look at these formations. The ancient seals weren't just holding back power, they were shaping it. Like a chrysalis shapes a butterfly. As if to prove her point, a cup of coffee on her desk suddenly transformed into a small galaxy of real stars, then back into coffee. These reality hiccups were becoming more common as the sealed powers grew stronger. Our ancestors didn't just lock away their abilities, she continued. They set up a transformation process. The powers we're getting back aren't the same ones they sealed away. There's something new. The building shook slightly as another wave of energy pulsed through the SEAL network. Outside, the sky was a constant dance of colors as reality adjusted to humanity's awakening abilities. Commander Morris joined the conversation through another hologram. Whatever we're going to do, we need to decide fast. I've got ships from 15 different alien factions trying to either help us or stop us. The Proxima Coalition is still threatening to use their dimension-collapsing weapons. Mary stepped through her data display, moving holographic symbols with her hands. Since the awakening began, she had found she could see quantum equations as clearly as other people saw colors. We have a choice to make, she said. We can try to restore the old seals, locking away these powers again, or we can embrace what we're becoming. Dr. Nash frowned. Is restoring the seals even possible at this point? Mary shook her head. Not without causing massive damage. It would be like trying to force a butterfly back into its chrysalis. We've already started changing. Around the world, that change was becoming more obvious every hour. Children were being born with natural abilities to see energy fields. Old people found their minds growing sharper, their bodies healing themselves. Humanity was taking its next evolutionary step. A new hologram appeared. Ambassador Reynolds reporting from the council chamber. The council is split. Half of them want to help us control the transformation. The other half want to evacuate this entire sector of the galaxy before we fully awaken. Mary walked through her data again, thinking. Then she saw something that made her heart skip a beat. Look at this pattern, she said, highlighting part of the SEAL network's energy flow. It's not random. The network is responding to our choices, our intentions. The more we try to fight it, the more chaotic it becomes. But when we work with it, she gestured, and the holographic display changed. Now they could see how the energy patterns smoothed out when humans used their new abilities with purpose and care. Our ancestors didn't seal away these powers because they were dangerous, Mary said. They sealed them because humanity wasn't ready to use them responsibly. But the seals weren't meant to last forever. They were meant to teach us. Commander Morris's hologram flickered. "Teach us what?" "How to be better," Mary replied. The SEALs have been slowly releasing power for generations, but only to those who could handle it responsibly. Think about it. Throughout history, when humanity faced its greatest challenges, people would sometimes show impossible abilities. Now we know why. She brought up historical data, showing seemingly miraculous events throughout human history. People lifting impossible weights to save others. Mothers showing superhuman strength to protect their children. Scientists having breakthrough insights that seemed to come from nowhere. The SEALs weren't just containing power, she said. They were testing us, training us. And now, another tremor shook the building. This time, when reality rippled, Mary could see the patterns behind it. The quantum structure of space-time itself was responding to human consciousness. "We're not just getting our old powers back," she said. "We're getting something better. The ability to understand our power, not just use it. To see the consequences of our actions, not just their immediate effects." Ambassador Reynolds spoke up. "The Council needs to know. Are we dangerous?" Mary smiled. "We're as dangerous as a surgeon with a scalpel. Yes, we could cause harm. But that's not what these powers are for. They're tools for healing, for building, for understanding. The real question isn't whether we're dangerous. It's whether we're ready to be doctors instead of destroyers." As if responding to her words, the SEAL network pulsed with new energy. But this time, the pulse was smooth, controlled. Reality rippled, but instead of chaos, the ripples formed patterns. Beautiful, complex patterns that spoke of growth and change. "We can't go back," Mary said firmly. "And we shouldn't try. Our ancestors gave us these training wheels for a reason, but now it's time to ride on our own." The holograms of Dr. Nash, Commander Morris, and Ambassador Reynolds looked at each other. They all knew she was right. The choice wasn't whether to keep these powers or give them up. The choice was how to move forward with them. "Tell the Council," Mary said to Ambassador Reynolds, "that humanity chooses to embrace its heritage. Not as world breakers, but as world shapers. We won't run from our power, but we won't misuse it either." Outside her lab windows, the aurora in the sky seemed to brighten, as if responding to humanity's decision. The time of hiding behind SEALs was ending. The time of responsibility was beginning. The choice had been made. Now they just had to prove it was the right one. Project Director Daniel Wright stood at the window of the new Global Harmony Center, watching the sky shimmer with controlled waves of energy. 6 months had passed since humanity made its choice to embrace its awakening powers, and everything had changed. "The latest readings are ready," Linda Parker called from her workstation. As senior researcher, she had helped develop the new harmonic resonance system that allowed humans to safely access their abilities. Daniel walked over to her screen, where complex patterns danced and flowed. The old geometric seals were gone now, replaced by a living network of energy that connected all of humanity. "Show me how the integration is progressing," he said. Linda pulled up a global map. Bright points of light showed where humans were using their abilities responsibly. The lights formed a beautiful web around the planet, pulsing with life and purpose. "We've had no major incidents for 3 months now," she reported. "The training programs are working. People are learning to control their powers naturally." A hologram appeared above their desk. Ambassador Reynolds calling from the Galactic Council's chambers. Her face showed a tired smile. "The Council has made their final decision," she announced. "Earth is officially recognized as the custodian of fundamental force manipulation. We're no longer under quarantine." Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. After months of proving themselves, humanity had finally earned the galaxy's trust. "What convinced them?" he asked. "Show them the Sydney Project," Linda suggested, pulling up the footage. The hologram displayed a scene from Australia, where a team of newly awakened humans was helping repair the Great Barrier Reef. They didn't just plant new coral. They reached into the quantum structure of reality itself, healing decades of damage in days. "And the Sahara Initiative," Daniel added. The image shifted to North Africa, where another team was transforming the desert. They didn't just plant trees, they adjusted the flow of weather patterns, bringing rain to places that had been dry for centuries. "This is why our ancestors sealed away our power," Linda said softly, "not because it was too dangerous, but because they wanted us to learn to use it like this, to heal instead of harm, to build instead of break." The building hummed as another wave of energy pulsed through Earth's new harmonic network. But unlike the chaotic waves from 6 months ago, this one was smooth, controlled, purposeful. "Director Wright," a young voice called. A 10-year-old girl named Amy walked into the room. Like all children born since the awakening, she had natural control over her abilities. "The school groups are ready for their lesson." Daniel smiled. Education had changed dramatically since the awakening. Children didn't just learn about the universe, they could see and touch the fundamental forces that shaped it. "What are you teaching them today?" he asked. "How to listen to trees," Amy said seriously. "They have so many interesting stories to tell." As Amy left, Linda pulled up more data. "The harmonic network is stable. The more we use these abilities to help others, the stronger and more controlled they become." Outside, a group of engineers flew past the window, using their powers to repair a weather control satellite. They didn't need ships or spacesuits anymore. They could survive in space by adjusting the quantum fields around their bodies. "The galaxy was so afraid of us awakening," Daniel said. "They thought we'd become the world breakers again. Instead, we became something better," Linda finished. "World healers, world builders." A new alert flashed on their screens. A star was going supernova in a nearby system. In the old days, this would have meant the death of several inhabited worlds. But now, they watched as Earth's response team teleported to the scene. The team didn't try to stop the supernova. Instead, they reshaped space around it, directing the explosion away from populated worlds, turning a disaster into a spectacular-like show. "The Council wants us to train other species," Ambassador Reynolds said through the hologram. "They've seen what we can do, how we've grown. They want to learn." Daniel thought about this. Are we ready to be teachers? Linda brought up the success rates from their human training programs. "We learned how to handle these powers safely. We can help others do the same." The harmonic network pulsed again, and this time Daniel could feel the consciousness of humanity within it. Not a single mind, but billions of individuals working together, supporting each other, growing together. "Our ancestors would be proud," he said. "They sealed away our powers hoping we'd learn wisdom. And we did." A group of alien ships appeared in the sky above the center. The first diplomatic mission to Earth since the quarantine lifted. They came not in fear, but in friendship, ready to learn from the species that had grown so much. Amy popped her head back into the room. "Director Wright, the aliens are here for their first lesson. Should I show them how to hear the trees?" Daniel smiled. "That's a perfect place to start." As the sun set over the center, Earth glowed with its new energy. The sealed powers were sealed no more, but they weren't a danger anymore either. They were tools, gifts, responsibilities, and humanity had finally grown wise enough to use them well. The galaxy had discovered why Earth's world-breaking forces were sealed away. They were sealed away to give humanity time to grow, to learn, to become not what they were, but what they could be. And now, at last, they had become exactly what their ancestors had hoped for. Not world breakers, but world makers. Not destroyers, but creators. Not a force to be feared, but teachers to be respected. The seals were gone, but they had served their purpose. They had given humanity time to learn the most important lesson of all, that the greatest power isn't the ability to break worlds. It's the wisdom to know when not to.